Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another FPC NFL Sunday. It is the day after Christmas. Happy or Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates, and Happy Holidays to everyone else. We're excited to be here. There's always a different feel during this time of the year. It's always a little bit fun, and maybe you feel a little bit better about being a little bit lazier this weekend, and that's exactly what I'm going with. And especially after the show's over, that's all I'm going to be doing is sitting on my rear end watching football and eating leftovers. So before we get to that, though, before I can sit there and enjoy my Sunday, Braden, Ricky, and I are going to have to give you the lowdown of what's going on this weekend. So good morning, fellas. How you doing today? Merry Christmas, and happy to be here on yet our last Sunday of 2021, actually.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Even with the extra game this season, it seems like this year's gone quicker and quicker than usual. So, still a lot of hectic stuff to play out, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely a crazy day. Only, I believe, like 2 or 3 games with not having one team with playoff consideration. Even then, those have some intrigue. And just to provide intrigue, Ian, I actually have thrown out the New Jersey today.
Nice.
Apparently have moved on from the Brady regime and have now christened in the new guy for a big AFC East deciding game this afternoon. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's I got it's hard to see with all my other things hanging up behind me, and yes, that is a Spider-Man mask, one of few that I have. So just draw whatever conclusions you would like from that. I will not elaborate any further, only to secure my secret identity. But no, behind me also under the pile of stuff is also a Mac Jones jersey. So I too have embraced the new era. And unfortunately, last week was the first time since I've had the jersey for I think I got it right after the Cowboys game. They had lost, so it had brought some good fortune for a while. So hopefully they can get back on a winning streak here today. But we did have 2 games yesterday, guys. 2 games yesterday on Christmas. The Browns, look, I feel bad for Browns fans. I really do. I mean, having to rely on a guy like Baker Mayfield is just absolute torture. And from a rooting interest, I've had to twice this season actually root for the Browns, and it's been the absolute worst experience of my life. It's just I just don't understand how Cleveland fans can do it week in and week out. But 4 interceptions yesterday from Baker Mayfield, and yet they lose by just 2 points. And you sit there, you scratch your head, and you're like, where does Cleveland go from here? Because they're 7-8, and albeit they're still in the race because of the AFC North, they're still in the race. But I mean, even if they do get to the playoffs, I mean, do you have any confidence in this team being able to beat any sort of good team in the AFC? I don't.
No, I do think they have a possibly Super Bowl caliber roster. I guess I just think that there's so much belief I think in this season that's gone right now for a lot of these guys, whether it's just because of COVID and injuries that have kind of taken over, or just like you said, I think the belief in Baker Mayfield from his own teammates I think has definitely waned, and I think a lot of people just from the Odell Beckham trade and even other stuff like that are kind of starting to see what the real issue is. So from a team standpoint, I do think they can still fight hard and kind of scratch and claw, but definitely not a Super Bowl winner.
Look, I'll put the blame on Baker Mayfield as well for 4 interceptions, but I feel like this year when people have been so quick to pile on Baker Mayfield, it's also the Browns as a whole just underachieved. Their defense was supposed to be much better than it is. And you look at yesterday, Stefanski's back coaching, so it's fair to criticize this. You've got the ball at midfield, 3 timeouts, and basically control the clock, and Nick Chubb is running up and down the field, and you're throwing the ball. Knowing that Mayfield has 3 picks already, take the pass interference, no pass interference aside. You're a team like the Browns, and we've watched teams basically make coaching decisions like Harbaugh did a week ago to not let Aaron Rodgers touch the ball. Let Nick Chubb try to run the ball as far as he can down the field and then kick the field goal. Why, if Baker's thrown 3 picks, are you putting him in that situation to do it again? So to me, as much as we blame Baker yesterday, Stefanski's got to be up there on that list as well.
And again, this is if you think about it too, that the irony of it is, based on both the second halves, you brought up the Ravens game last week and of course this game this week, which in very similar fashion, it felt like, very obviously not identical endings, but same type of feel. Like, I would have been pretty fine giving Aaron Rodgers the ball in the second half. They weren't doing anything on offense. And the reality of it was, and you look post game and whatnot, Cleveland was not allowing anything down the field. They were getting chewed apart with the throws to the line of scrimmage, but beyond that, there wasn't much. And it took a Alan Lazard really phenomenal catch on the sideline to really bust open a big drive like that. So to me, that's coaching. You have to be aware of the situation and forget about the name. Again, I have my own qualms about Rodgers, but the point is like you can't just get enamored with the name or the toe or whatever. I mean, whatever it was last night that Aaron Rodgers got you. But for in Stefanski's case, it was the name. It was like, oh, don't want to give it to Aaron Rodgers. Well, guess what? I'd much rather not give it to Baker Mayfield. So give the ball to Nick Chubb. Let him run the ball. Who cares if you end up giving it back to Aaron Rodgers? Because right now your defense is doing a job. 3 points in the second half. And outside of some short yardage drives due to Baker Mayfield interceptions, the Packers offense has been what it has been the entire season, which is, guess what? A middle of the road, just fringe top 10 offense. And, that's tough because if you're a Browns fan, I can't help but sit here and think that despite the limitations at coaching, despite having all this talent on both sides of the field, you're really a quarterback from being a playoff contender away. Like, I think at this point, I just don't see Baker Mayfield as that guy who's going to bring together a group of, a talent and maybe overcome some bad coaching decisions. Because essentially what you have in Cleveland is Tampa Bay without Tom Brady.
Yeah, and I think that speaks kind of volumes too. Yes, just kind of looking at where the Browns are right now. Ravens are kind of running out of gas. Of course, Lamar is probably going to miss, 2 straight games, maybe a third. And Pittsburgh's obviously at the end of the Roethlisberger era, so not really having that much confidence in your quarterback going forward right now. It's very, very difficult when another quarterback in Ohio is way better already in his second year. So that's another kind of crazy thing is the timing of all this and just seeing what the other teams are going to kind of do at quarterback this offseason. Pittsburgh, when's Lamar going to get his extension if that happens? So the timing of all this is also really interesting for the Browns.
You also have to wonder, I think, can Cleveland become more than a run 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense? Because they don't have a number one wide receiver. Now, was Odell Beckham a number one? No. I think people knew that even when the Browns traded for him. But there is some limitations to what the offense can do. You can't just have Jarvis Landry be your number one and then have Donovan Peoples-Jones be your number two. Any quarterback is going to struggle with that. We even saw that with Keenum, but they didn't score that much. We saw that with Nick Mullins 5 days prior. So the Browns basically played really well off a short week. I think it's about what they want to be, because I think if you look at the totality of the season for them, like I said earlier, you can blame Baker for a lot. This defense was supposed to be a lot better than it was. And I know Myles Garrett's having a fantastic season, but other than him, this defense has done nothing to kind of merit the hype they got coming in. So they kind of have to do a big picture look, but you've seen this with the Giants and news from Schefter today that Daniel Jones is probably coming back. What you have, as mediocre as it is probably better than what you're going to get this offseason, barring something really flashy. So they're going to have to work the better pieces around him and try to get something to where, okay, it's either him or we find somebody else at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's not easy to find a franchise quarterback. I mean, they're hot commodity and certainly a rare one. The only thing rarer in this league might be good coaches, because what a fantastic transition into talking about the second game. Because before we got on the air, we kind of we're spitballing a little bit about Cliff Kingsbury, and I think for the most part we all agree, or at least to some extent, that his abilities as a coach are limited, like in terms of decision making, and it's not just him. I mean, we see this if anyone listens to FPC Radio Live on a regular basis, you'd understand that I rail on these coaches and their decision making pretty much on a daily basis. And over the last 3 or 4 weeks, where we've seen an abundance of poor fourth down and field goal decisions, it feels like that's all I do is complain about it. But the point is this idea about aggressiveness and how it can translate or absolve coaches from what should be very real criticism, and that is inability to make adequate decisions throughout the game. And it's not about making the perfect decision every single time. Even Bill Belichick doesn't make the right decision every single time, but he does a damn good job doing it. And even some of the really other good coaches, the Andy Reids, I mean, Braden, I mean, Andy Reid's had his own limitations, at times with clock management, but it pales into comparison to some of these other coaches that we've seen that have been lumped into the elite coach tier. And it just, to me, Cliff Kingsbury is just another one of those guys. Second year in a row now that this Cardinals team is collapsing. And I don't know, it's not that surprising, is it? Maybe we're viewing this with a little bit of hindsight, but is it really that surprising to either of you?
I don't think so. I think the thing that's kind of stuck out to me, I guess, is how much I think Cliff's really become, more reliant on Kyler. And even though he's been as good as he's been, I think there's still some stuff that Kyler hasn't, learned yet or obviously picked up on. So I think they're a little too reliant on him. And the thing is, I think always about Cliff, I heard this one time that just how much his focus actually is on football. We kind of talked off the air beforehand about all the flash and how that kind of plays into the aggressiveness. And I think just how much Cliff is kind of focused on off the field with whether it be antics or, just pictures of his house during the draft or anything like that. The fact that I think that stands out sometimes bigger than his on-field product definitely speaks volumes.
And it's an indictment on Kingsbury. This team just hasn't come prepared to play. I mean, we kind of don't even talk about the Lions game, but they basically didn't show up. Give the Lions all the credit, but Arizona didn't come to play. And then last night, bad decisions aside, and there were a lot of bad ones, including not trusting a kicker that had probably one of his only bad games this year in Prater, but to basically have a penalty on every play. And they had like 11, 12 penalties. So that shows an undisciplined football team. While on the other side of the field, you got a team without your top offensive lineman, without your top defensive player, where Jonathan Taylor doesn't run for a touchdown for the first time since week 4, and you find a way to win on the road. So when we talk about how bad Kingsbury is, we probably should talk about how good of a coach, or not great yet, but how strong of a coach Frank Reich is becoming, because he's basically the Carson Wentz whisperer. Wentz, we talk about Kyler Murray not having DeAndre Hopkins, and that's big for him. Wentz is throwing touchdowns to Desmond Patton at the end of the game. So for the Colts to do less with more, probably as well as any team in the league, I wouldn't want to play that team in the playoffs. And you probably should, with the one bye, do anything you can to avoid playing Indy in the wild card round, because you're probably going to lose.
No, and I think you bring up a great point, because I do think that is a great contrast between good coaching and bad coaching, and the potential of what we have as like maybe that next tier of coaching. Because I think, again, you put Bill Belichick, I think you put Andy Reid. No. Well, you could. I'm not a John Harbaugh fan at all. I think he's closer to a Sean McVay than he is a Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin would be, I think, in that second tier, probably with John Harbaugh, because again, I can't ignore their success, but I do think John Harbaugh is very, I do what I do. I'm going to be aggressive, and I personally think he's cost the Ravens at least 2 games these last 2 weeks. So, but yeah, so I mean, when it comes to these middle tier of coaches, I like, you look at Frank Reich and you look at Cliff Kingsbury and you say, okay, Frank Reich has some staying power and actually some sustainability. You look at Cliff Kingsbury, kind of what we're talking about. It's not a history of great decisions. Team tends to come unprepared, and you have 2 straight seasons where your team collapses with talent around them. That's a coaching issue. So, and I think Frank Reich is obviously getting certainly the most out of what he has, and somehow has got Carson Wentz, who look, this is the thing. Like, you look at Carson Wentz play, and he's having a really fine season, but there's still a lot of old Carson Wentz in him. We saw it against the Patriots. He was just dying to throw interceptions. And the fact that Frank Reich can rein that in and get this team to where they are right now, I think speaks volume about his coaching ability. So, great point. I think just, again, the contrast in coaching was very much on display in that second game for sure. But we'll see. We'll see what happens long term. We could change our minds as things change. But anyways, big Sunday today. A lot of very key matchups. Like I believe you said, Ricky, to start the game or start the show. There's just a lot of playoff implications just present in a lot of these matchups. Obviously, we have the Patriots and Bills. That's going to be a big matchup to talk about here at 1:00. The Bucs are looking to clinch their division against the Panthers with pretty much everyone out. It seems they're actually going old school Pittsburgh Steelers, going Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell to carry the load. And of course, you just have Minnesota, Los Angeles, both NFC competitors. Los Angeles trying to take over that spot permanently from the Cardinals. Minnesota trying to keep pace, obviously, with the rest of the crowd. So before we get to that, though, the Chiefs. Good news, bad news. They get Tyreek Hill back, but they will not have Travis Kelsey today, and what should be, I think, a pretty difficult matchup. It's hard to really put a finger down on this Steelers team and really kind of pinpoint what they are, but they are capable of coming out and playing some really good defense, and that could be troublesome for a Chiefs team. Braden, how do the Chiefs manage this game without Travis Kelsey?
Yeah, I think it's a game that Andy Reid, I think, has to be willing to run the football a little bit. The Steelers are 31st right now in rushing defense and have allowed the most yards per carry. And we've definitely seen some games this year that have given Reid that opportunity, and he's always kind of shied away from it. So I don't expect him to fully commit. But I do think this is an offensive line that Kansas City's built where they could kind of rely on it if they wanted to. Right now, the interior has just kind of been one of the more powerful units all season. Creed Humphrey, definitely one of the top Pro Bowl snubs. And Trey Smith, I mean, just always a joy kind of watching him work downfield. So I do think this game, I think all Steelers games, the word I'd kind of describe them as is just kind of gross. There's nothing really pretty about any of them. So I do think it is going to be kind of a grinding game. Like you said, I think Tyreek Hill playing, I think is probably, if there was one guy that had to miss the game, I think Kelsey actually makes more sense, if that makes sense. I think the Chiefs can kind of rely more working on the outside in this game than maybe the middle. So definitely going to be interesting to see how Mahomes does without Kelsey, not having that security blanket, if he's going to kind of try to work more quick passing game, or if he'll kind of stick to kind of what he's always known in the past.
What I'm interested in this game, and I think you're right, Braden, I think having Hill is better than having Kelsey if you have to take one out, is no Harrison Butker, no Tommy Townsend. So no kicker, no punter. So basically the Chiefs know 9 times out of 10 it's 4 downs. And when you give an offense 4 downs to get 10 yards, especially with that quarterback, it's a lot tougher than having to go 3 downs to get 10 yards. So that I'm actually play to their benefit. They can run different plays. They can do different things, be creative. Because the thing with the Chiefs is actually their defense benefits in this game too, because Pittsburgh doesn't have Pat Fryermuth, and the offense looked a lot better with Fryermuth, and it's basically just now Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And we've learned with the Steelers offense, it's very Jekyll and Hyde. Even last week, they needed 4 turnovers just to win that game against Tennessee. And one of the things you notice with this defense with the Chiefs, they're going to get after Ben Roethlisberger. Chris Jones is back, I believe. Yep. So if that, with that being the case, I don't know which Pittsburgh offense is going to show up, and at least for the bulk of the last month and a half, 2 months, which Chiefs defense is going to show up. So they are at a little bit of a loss, but it allows them, I think, and allows Andy Reid and that Chiefs coaching staff to be a little bit more creative today, and that's a danger to any team they go against.
Well, that's the thing too. You can get both Steelers offenses in the same game, so you could get one, you could get the other, you could get both, and it could vary from quarter to quarter, drive to drive. That's just kind of to Braden's point, just how ugly the Steelers have been, and that in some ways can be complimentary, not necessarily a negative. So, yeah, we're obviously going to pick that game later, when we do our picks here in just a few moments. But Yeah, it's interesting because it's going to give the Chiefs a chance to again try something different. Maybe find out that maybe they have this set of plays without Kelsey in mind in them. And that's always valuable, especially during a playoff run, because the reality of it is when you get to the playoffs, you do want to be able to show things that teams have not seen before, and that's something that teams that win a lot, especially in the playoffs, are able to do. They're able to change things up and give you a variety and work with what you got. So, to your point, having Tyreek Hill though is more important because I personally feel like he is. It's hard not to say that he isn't the the most dangerous non-quarterback weapon on offense. When you think about just Devontae Adams, I think is the best wide receiver in the league, and there's a couple other guys that you can certainly it's hard to ignore what Cooper Kupp's doing, that type of stuff. But when it comes to just absolute boom, or I don't even want to say bust, but like the boom potential, if that makes sense, with Tyreek Hill is so much bigger than everyone else that it's like without him, I think this offense takes a much bigger step back than without Travis Kelsey. I think you can make up the loss of Travis Kelsey. Not completely. I'm not, he's one of those near irreplaceable players, but you can at least mitigate that loss. You can't do that with Tyreek Hill, I don't think. So, anyways, all right. So we got about half hour or so left, which means we're far ahead of pace from what we normally do here, which means we're going to have plenty of time to do our picks, which are our pickup props, and then of course our game picks, which we're going to start doing right now. So let me make sure that I got everything here, and we can get rolling. So starting with Giants Eagles, big NFC East matchup, and I think the Giants are officially eliminated now, right? They're not hanging around with a sliver of a chance. I'm pretty sure they're eliminated at this point. The Eagles are not. They are obviously fighting for playoff positioning, and of course, still in that hunt for the NFC East crown. So in this game, what do you see? Over under 42.5 points.
They're going to go with the under. The Giants are still technically alive, as weird as that is, but they'll probably be out after today with Jake from State Farm at quarterback. So the Eagles catch a break there. But also, you have to remember, Philly is coming off 4 days of prep going into this game. So they're going to be sloppy too. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to make so many mistakes they did the first time these two teams played, but I wouldn't expect a clean football game. So the under might be the better play.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the over on this one just because I do think Jalen Hurts right now has really found his groove. So as much as I think you have to worry about the Giants offense underperforming, this defense kind of feels like it's really starting to run off the rails. Joe Judge's kind of veteran leaders kind of packing it in, it feels like. So I'm actually going to go over on this one.
All right. Next, we have Hunter Renfro, 100 plus yards, another big divisional matchup. Broncos, Raiders, both 7-7 right now. 100 plus yards for Hunter Renfro. Yes or no? Or yep or no?
They were going yep, just basically because what else is there in Vegas? I mean, you kind of saw it against Cleveland when Waller's out. Renfro's basically getting everything. You can't rely on Josh Jacobs to do everything in this. And who's really the second receiver in Vegas? I think we're still trying to figure that out. Besides Renfro, I know Surtain's a problem, and Denver's defense is going to create some issues, but Renfro is going to get enough volume to get over the 100.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like you said, Ricky, not a lot of options with Darren Waller out today. Doubtful, at least it looks like. So I think overall, I mean, this is going to be, you mentioned Surtain. I think he's playing really well, but the fact that Renfro does most of his damage in the slot, I think that'll be a lot of opportunities for him to get the 100 plus yard mark today.
Next, this is a big one. See, the pressure being applied by the injured toe of Aaron Rodgers has really put some pressure on Brady to perform these last 3 weeks if he wants to win his 4th MVP award. I happen to think that despite the narrative, I do think Brady still holds a very slight edge in this race, although it has gotten to the point now where he has to perform quite well over these next 3 weeks, which he's certainly capable of doing. 3.5 touchdowns for Tom Brady against the Panthers team, who, despite their struggles offensively, are a top 10 defense, certainly top 10 pass defense. If you like the term, the DVOA, they certainly have a lot of other top 10 metrics that support them being there. Over under 3.5 touchdown passes for Tom Brady with a depleted offense.
I'm going to go under. I think it actually will end up being 3. And one of the reasons I think that is these next 3 games for Tampa are essentially a dress rehearsal for the playoffs. You're not going to have Chris Godwin. You have to act as if Mike Evans with a week-to-week injury. You're not sure with him. And Leonard Fournette's out for at least the regular season, but you can't trust that he might be available for the playoffs. And if he is, he'll be limited. So this is what Tampa's going to have for the most part. They kind of have to use these 3 games to kind of, not in a sense, reestablish identity, but kind of figure out what this group can do. And I think maybe with Carolina's pass defense being a decent unit, you might see more Ronald Jones today, trying to get him to be more of that feature back and carry the load like people thought he could be. I don't think Le'Veon Bell be doing that much, so you're going to see a lot of Ronald Jones, whether it's passing or receiving or rushing. I think Brady gets 3. I don't think he can get to 4 because I think they're going to try to be somewhat balanced today. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well, kind of adding to what Ricky said. I just don't think there will be a lot of points scored in this game. I do kind of worry about how much kind of explosive plays Brady's going to be able to hit on today. So, yeah, I think 3 is where he could kind of hit. But with that Carolina defense, I think it'll be under.
Sort of like when it comes to the Chiefs, like if you had to pick which players you want out, you'd rather have Kelsey out versus Hill. I think the silver lining for the Buccaneers, despite all these injuries, you get Antonio Brown back and you have Rob Gronkowski.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the 2, and that's not to say anything about the other, Mike Evans and certainly Chris Godwin, but I think that's the strongest connection between Brady and a receiver and obviously a tight end that they have on the team. So there is silver lining there. I agree with you. I think Ricky, he's going to hit that 3. I'll take it. I'll take the over next week when they play the Jets on whatever number it is, because I do think you're going to see quite a large number there. But today I do think he does hit that 3 mark. So next we have not this one because we already did that. Here we go. Patriots. Wow. If you can squint and see this, apparently I did not zoom in on this one. It says Patriots more rush or passing yards versus the Bills in Week 16. Now remember, last time these 2 teams faced, it was the windy game up in Buffalo, 3 pass attempts. Damian Harris does look like he's leaning towards being able to play in this game, which is a big plus for the Patriots running game. But Ricky, I'll start with you. More rushing or more passing yards in this one against the Bills?
I'm actually going to go more passing. Ramondre Stevenson out on the COVID list. Damian Harris with that hamstring you mentioned, Ian, is going to play, but how healthy is that hamstring? We know Harris's injury issues could creep up. I think it's going to be more passing, and I think the Patriots are actually in a better position with their receiving weapons. The Bills don't have Gabriel Davis or Cole Beasley today. The Patriots do have Kendrick Bourne. They do have Jacoby Myers, and I think this is the game where Belichick uses 3 players in particular. The 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith, I think, get more involved. And Brandon Bolden as a screen guy, I think, is going to be huge today. They're going to need Bolden to pick up those screens on 3rd and 5 to move the chain. So I'm actually going to go, to contrary to popular belief, even though the Patriots can run the football on this Bills defense, I think they pass it not great, but they pass it a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm going to go passing as well. I think this is one of those games where I think Mac Jones is going to kind of be given a lot of freedom maybe to kind of show what he can do. And the Bills have definitely not been as good of a tackling team overall as they have in past seasons. So I think having Kendrick Bourne back and, of course, Jacoby Myers, I think there's going to be chances for a lot of missed tackles and explosive plays today. So, and I think game script could also kind of play in. I think Jones may have to kind of win this with his arm late. So I'm going to go passing yards.
Yeah, that would certainly send the Boston media in a frenzy if Jones actually is able to do that, because if anyone's familiar with how things are covered up in New England, and I'm sure Ricky is, it's a mess. I'm not even going to get into it. Next, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, more receiving yards, Week 16. Cooper Kupp, mind you, he's not too far off from setting some all-time records here. Obviously, with the addition of the 17th game, it makes it far more attainable. But Cooper Kupp has been fantastic this entire season, from start to finish. So it might be an easy answer in this one. Maybe it's not, but who has more receiving yards in week 16?
Yeah, I think it's Cooper Kupp. The Vikings defense, especially against the passes and shambles with their secondary. And one of the cool stats from Tuesday that Chris Myers brought out on the telecast as I was watching the Rams single-handedly lose me my fantasy playoffs is Kupp has scored out of 7 different formations this year, which is insane. So even if he's getting the ball, you can't stop him. And the fact that he's really, when I think you look at him, people are like, he's not Devontae Adams, he's not DeAndre Hopkins. So what? The guy's going to probably break Calvin Johnson's receiving yards record. He's probably going to have about 15 to 18 touchdowns. So we talked about Taylor last week. Cooper Kupp maybe should be the MVP debate as well, considering how much Stafford relies on him. But I think because the Vikings have to pass the ball more today, and Thielen's playing, but who knows how healthy he actually is, Kupp gets the edge.
Yeah, I think it's Kupp as well. I think it's kind of really stood out more how much the team's kind of relied on Robert Woods in the past since he's been out. So definitely some big play opportunities here and there for guys like Van Jefferson. But I just think Cooper Kupp, like you said, gets so many out of those many formations, like you mentioned, gets so many kind of designed quick throws. So I think we'll kind of see that continue today and him out edge Jefferson by just enough.
Yeah, it should be fun, and he's obviously very entertaining to watch. I've given Matt Stafford some slack before in the past, but you mentioned how. Oh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. You mentioned how Cooper Kupp is obviously potentially going to break Calvin Johnson. Well, who's throwing the ball to Calvin Johnson? Matt Stafford. I mean, like I said, I think I'm a very fair evaluator of quarterback talent. And I have criticized Matt Stafford in the past, but I think to potentially be the arm that is responsible for 2 of the most prolific pass catching seasons in NFL history, I think that's a pretty impressive feat. And look, I mean, he's had his ups and downs this season, but he's certainly played good enough football to keep this Rams team really in the hunt for even the top seed, and right now looking like they're in the driver's seat in the NFC West, especially with the Cardinals just plummeting. So next, in a game that again, the Giants are technically still alive, so you're saying there's a chance. Not really. I mean, seriously. I mean, they probably ruined their chance for next season already with the announcement that Daniel Jones is going to be back with Joe Judge. So they certainly don't really have a realistic shot this season. But who is going to have more rushing yards today? Is it going to be Saquon Barkley or is it going to be Miles Sanders?
Oh, it's Miles Sanders. I mean, even though Sanders in the first matchup went 9 carries for 64 yards, he's at least capable of breaking out a 25, 30-yard run, even if Philly mixes in a couple different things or uses Jalen Hurts. You can't trust right now that Saquon Barkley can do much. Honestly, it's at times been sad because Devontae Booker gives them more production in the ground game than Saquon does. So it makes you wonder, it's not the offensive line. Is it really, what does Saquon actually end up being is really a concern the Giants have to figure out, just as important as the quarterback. But Sanders, to me, should get enough big plays. Maybe it's one big play to outrush Barkley.
Yeah, not only Barkley not hitting on those big plays, but this Philly defense has been playing really, really well for about the last month. I mean, that defensive line might be one of the deeper ones of NFC teams kind of fighting for playoff spots right now. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for their playoff chances down the line. But I do think game script could also help Miles Sanders in this one. So got to go with Sanders.
Let's see. I think that might have been our last one. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, it is our last one, which means we're coming up to our game picks, and we're going to have a little fun because we actually have more than 5 minutes to do these. Normally, we leave ourselves about 5 minutes to run through 10 to 12 games, and we're constantly just running around. And I'm pretty sure a couple times over the last couple weeks, I've double picked. I think I've picked one team one day and picked the other. And unfortunately, all the evidence is out there on video, so I can't really deny it. I just got to be a little bit more responsible with my picks. That's why I have them right in front of me. They're the same ones I put in our friend's site over at Tally Site. And of course, the same ones I'm going to tout the rest of the weekend. So let's get into it. Of course, like I said, as you can see on the screen, We already had 2 games played yesterday. Cleveland losing to Green Bay, and Arizona obviously dropping their game to Indianapolis. So let's get into Sunday. Detroit at Atlanta. Detroit coming off a big win. Their second of the season. Heading to Atlanta to face a team that, well, I mean, you would think they'd be better than what their record is, but each and every year we look at the Falcons and we're like, okay, they have Matt Ryan. In the past, they've had Julio Jones. Now they have Kyle Pitts. They've had some talent at running back. They had some talent throughout the rest of the offense. They've had some good defensive players, but they never seem to quite get it together. Do they do it today against Detroit, or is Detroit riding high and that got that momentum going with them? I'll start with you, Ricky.
Well, I think what helps the Falcons today is Jared Goff is out. Was put on the COVID list on Monday, has not recovered. So Tim Boyle is the quarterback. I don't even think Tim Boyle wants me to read Tim Boyle's stat line from his only start against the Browns this year.
Please do.
15 for 23, 77 yards, 2 picks.
Oof.
And the Falcons, I think, could do something defensively. I don't think the Lions will be able to have big plays. I think Swift and Williams are playing. By the way, I hate the Pro Bowl. I don't care for Pro Bowl selections. How is Cordero Patterson not a Pro Bowl running back? I mean, he has helped the Falcons stay in this thing. He's been explosive. He's done everything you could want. He deserves a lot more recognition this year. I think he'll eventually get in. Falcons win, and pretty quietly, good job by Arthur Smith if this team ends up winning 8-9 games this year.
Yeah, I'm going Falcons as well. I do think Detroit can keep it close, though, even without Goff. I just think right now they're scheming up a lot of things defensively that's kind of going under the radar, especially in the front seven. But yeah, I think Atlanta, like you said, Cordero Patterson, and I think you just have that veteran savvy of Matt Ryan that's going to make a difference today. So I do think it'll be tight with these kind of two teams' history, but I got Atlanta.
Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sorry, by the way, I took Atlanta as well. I can't remember if I said that or not. It might be obvious, but just checking my sheet. Anyways, Cincinnati hosting Baltimore. Is Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh? It doesn't matter. They're both Harbaughs. They're both the same exact person to me. It doesn't really matter. Is John Harbaugh going to cost Baltimore yet another game against the Bengals? I'll start with you, Ricky.
Yesterday I'm thinking about this game, and if Tyler Huntley was the quarterback, I was going to pick the Ravens because the Bengals, I just don't trust them right now. They don't show up in a big game. Look at the big games they've been in this year. And then when they're expected to do things, they don't do what they're supposed to do. The Denver game was ugly last week. If Bridgewater doesn't get hurt, they probably lose. But Josh Johnson's quarterback for the Ravens today. And I give Harbaugh a lot of credit with this roster and the IRs and the COVID list and everything to get this team even close to a division title. It speaks to what he's able to do. I think the Bengals win. Not from anything that they do. I just think Baltimore is just running out of bodies. And that alone makes me pick the Bengals, but I don't trust them at all.
Yeah, the Ravens have been able to win so many games in the past that it seems like, they don't have a shot in with so many bodies out. I don't think that happens today. I think the Bengals offense is just going to be too much for the Ravens to outscore. So it's not just offensively that you're having to worry about with the Ravens and their quarterback situation. I think this is probably one of the worst defenses the Ravens have had under Harbaugh that I can remember. So first time since 2009, Bengals sweep both the Ravens and Steelers in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Cincinnati. Yeah, I'm with you, Ricky. Though I can't try as much as I like Joe Burrow. I like Jamar Chase. I kind of like the Bengals. I just can't trust them. They're giving me not much to feel confident in week to week because they're capable of so much, but then they're also capable of laying an egg and potentially losing a game to Josh Johnson. So give me the Bengals, but I put my pick in with pencil, so I can erase it later if need be. Next, Minnesota hosting the Rams, and this was kind of a hard game to pick because it seems obvious that the Rams should win this game. Minnesota, their pass off defense isn't that great. Minnesota, they at times look like a bottom of the NFC North type of team, but then you sit there and you're like, well, they've lost all these games by combined like whatever it is, like 15, 16 points. The low scoring nature or the low margin of defeat that they have. They've beaten some pretty good teams like the Packers, who they have next week. I think we're going to take Minnesota. at home. And look, I mean, the Rams are I've I've been harsh on the Rams for much of the season. I think I've softened that stance a little bit. I think this is just more about situation as it is more so a statement about what the Rams are. I think Minnesota is just going to take advantage of being at home and maybe maybe they're getting amped up for the following week where they host Green Bay. So, but I do have Minnesota with what would should be considered an upset and should be considered an upset. So.
Short week for the Rams. I think that makes this game not as obvious. But I think with Arizona losing last night and the Rams knowing the division is basically theirs if they win out, and no Dalvin Cook today, who's unvaccinated in the COVID protocol, I think hurts. I think what also goes underlooked, the Vikings were awful on Monday. I know the Bears were just as bad, but if Minnesota can't dominate the Bears like they should have, now to go on a short week and play a Rams defense that starting to find some things. Von Miller looked really good on Tuesday. I'm going to go with the Rams on the road in a close game because largely, you mentioned close games. I'm sorry, I trust Matthew Stafford more than I trust Kirk Cousins. So give me the Rams.
Yeah, Ricky went right where I was going. I do not really have any trust in Cousins after what we saw Monday night, and I think this is kind of a Rams defense that is not a good matchup for the Vikings in terms of what they do between the 20s, kind of a methodical pace. I think the Rams actually kind of play better against that, and then obviously get tougher in between the 20s with Aaron Donald and then that secondary. So I don't know if it'll be a blowout, but I could kind of see the Rams pulling away at the end to kind of make this look like a worse game than it really is. So I got LA on the road.
Next, we have the rematch. New England hosting Buffalo. Obviously, New England still holds the 1-game lead in the division. This game will not wrap up the division. I believe so. This maybe my math is wrong. I don't believe that the Patriots can win the division with a win this week. They would still need some help, but it would certainly make it almost near impossible for Buffalo to rebound, assuming the Patriots can get the job done in their last 2 games, 2 very winnable last 2 games. I'm taking the Patriots in this game. I know last week was a bit of a stumble for this team. They definitely came out a bit flat against Indianapolis. And I think we heard post game from a lot of the players that, look, we just didn't have a good week of practice. And you know what? Sometimes you just play a bad game. I once watched the Patriots at 14-1 lose a game to the 1-14 Miami Dolphins in a season they went on to win the Super Bowl. So sometimes it happens. Not to be ignored, though. Indianapolis is a very good team, so it's a tough loss for them. It certainly could have given the Patriots a little bit more of a cushion, but alas, they have a chance right now, and I do think at home they get it done. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think Mac Jones does have a pretty big game, and I think the opportunity will be there for him to really make a statement and really potentially put a bow on this division. So give me the Patriots at home in this one.
You're right on the math, although essentially this is, I think, the AFC East decider. Patriots win. All they have to do is basically beat Jacksonville week 17 and win the division. And Buffalo plays Atlanta and the Jets last 2 weeks. So I don't really see Buffalo losing any of those 2 games. So essentially this is the deciding game, as good as Miami's playing. I think when you come look at this matchup, I don't trust Buffalo to run and pass the ball. I think Buffalo run the ball a little better than they did a couple weeks ago, but I don't think, what does Belichick like to do against Josh Allen? Make him make mistakes, throw the ball down the field, make him overthrow. As long as Josh Allen isn't running, and even if he does run, he's got that bad foot. How much are they going to really let him run the ball? I think with no Davis today, no Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders is back, but off a knee sprain, so I don't know how healthy he actually is. They're down 2 offensive linemen. Left tackle just came back yesterday off the COVID list. How fresh is he in this game? This Patriot defense is angry. I think the Patriot offense is going to be ugly. I think, as you said, Ian, their defense is going to come ready to play. And especially Josh Uche is the next factor today. He's back off IR. And I think he can create more different looks for New England. I think it's low scoring. Nick Folk wins it. I'll say 2017 Patriots win.
I'll say this real quick. Can you really have a foot injury if it's not mentioned 25 times during a broadcast? Just throwing it out there. Anyways, go ahead, Braden.
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, obviously you never want to have a loss, but I think if there was a game to kind of come off of one for New England, this might be a perfect one right here, just because I just think Buffalo is obviously one of those teams in my mind that I think everything kind of has to be right around them for them to kind of win the big games right now. So, like Ricky mentioned, with the wide receivers out, I don't think Josh Allen's going to be able to come through today. Like I kind of said earlier, I think this could be a game that Mac Jones kind of wins on his own with his arm. So, do think it'll be tight, but I got New England sweeping the Buffalo Bills.
Jacksonville at New York, of course. The game we've all, and it doesn't matter which New York team. I could have said the Jets or the Giants, and same reaction. I mean, who the hell wants to watch this game? I'll take Jacksonville because I can't physically stand taking the Jets in anything. So give me Jacksonville. I have nothing else to add to that besides that. Look, Trevor Lawrence has what? One touchdown in his last 7 games. He's got to start producing. I mean, I talked about this a little bit on FPC Radio Live this week. I think much like the unaccountability of coaches when it comes to aggressiveness has become a thing, so has giving quarterbacks a pass for being in bad situations. Like, no one's going to sit here and pretend that Trevor Lawrence isn't in a bad situation. But you've thrown one touchdown pass over the span of essentially half a season. That's not good. I don't care who your coach is. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care how many players you're playing. That's bad. You have to perform. And I think this is a situation where you're going up against another high draft pick who has essentially done the same exact thing, has not performed. And all we've heard about is, oh, well, it's the situation. It's the situation. Well, at a certain point, the quarterback has to produce. And neither of those guys have done that. It'll be interesting to see which one actually does. If I had to put my money on it, like I said, I'll go with Jacksonville. So I guess I did have more they had, but
yeah, I think both these quarterbacks, you can make the case both getting completes this year. I think we kind of can't evaluate them fully off of one season. Jacksonville with Meyer and Wilson's dealt with injuries as well as a crazy dynamic with the Jets to where their top play caller unfortunately had a tragic accident in the summer and really I think has affected what that team can do. This game could go one or two ways. It could either be 13-10 or it could be 30-27. That's just the way this game is shaping out. I actually think it's going to be entertaining. I think Wilson can make plays. Jacksonville's without, I believe, Josh Allen and Miles Jack today. So there will be plays made in this game. Question is by who? And Jacksonville kind of the same thing. Jets have about 20 people in protocol, including their head coach. So I do think points will be galore. I actually trust Zach Wilson and the Jets more than I trust Trevor Lawrence. So give me the Jets at home.
I'm going to go Jets as well. I think just watching some of Zach Wilson the last couple of weeks, I think he's kind of figured out a lot more rhythm as far as how to kind of work in and out of the pocket and when to kind of take off and run. So he's actually getting a lot more comfortable. That's definitely probably flying under the radar right now because it is the Jets. So just solely on that alone, I kind of trust more in this game. And I do think that I do think the defense, even without Sal, I think they're still going to kind of be able to limit the explosive plays, not necessarily just because of Lawrence and his struggles, but this is kind of a defense that's still fought hard all year. So I got the Jets winning at home.
I kind of want this to be a 2-2 tie. I think that might be some scoregami for us, for anyone out there keeping track. But 2-2, 2 safeties. That's it. That's what I'm hoping for. That's the chaos that I hope ensues. Philadelphia hosting the other New York trash barrel team, the New York Giants, who, like Ricky said, is percentage points still in the race. There's still a chance. There's still a chance that I make it to the NHL and get a Disney movie made about me. But the Giants heading to Philadelphia. Not that I put much stock or faith in the Philadelphia Eagles. What I do put stock in is how bad the Giants are. And I just don't think they're capable of going and winning this game on the road. Although I think it's going to be close. I think it's good. This is good. I think this might be the sloppiest game. Like, as much as, the Jets in Jacksonville seems like on paper it's just going to be an awful football game to watch. I kind of agree that it's going to be just like kind of just wildly entertaining. Maybe just, I don't know. Just for some reason, I just feel like that game has a little bit more, pizzazz potential, if that makes sense. This game does not, to me. I think it's going to be kind of just an ugly, bad football game between two teams that one's borderline a playoff team. The other one is borderline a lottery team, or actually is a lottery team. So if this were the NBA. So yeah, give me the Eagles.
Sloppy play, I think, is definitely a possibility here, because especially Philly's got a short week, and I think we also underestimate the fact that both Philly and Washington will get to later playing division games the rest of the way, and how much does it take out of you when you're constantly playing division game, division game, division game. The Giants don't want to lose. I mean, let's call it Jake Fromm starting because Mike Glennon's terrible, and the Giants want 2 top 5 picks, meaning they have the Bears pick, so there's no incentive really for them to win other than Joe Judge to stick it to Philly for what the Eagles did to the Giants last year and cost them a playoff spot by playing Nate Sudfeld. But even with that in mind, Philly's too good. Eagles win.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add. Glennon, we know what Glennon's kind of able to passes that a little bit against Dallas. But yeah, like Ricky said, especially defensively right now, limiting points. So I don't think that changes today. I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading to Carolina to take on the Panthers. We talked about this game earlier. Obviously, for those interested in the MVP race, this will be the 7th time that the Buccaneers and Tom Brady have faced a pass defense per DVOA that is in the top 10. Compared to Aaron Rodgers, he's only done that 3 times. So just throwing that out there for anyone who wants a little bit of ammunition. Of course, the Bucs will play this team twice in the remaining 3 games. I do think we talked about the over-under being 3.5 touchdowns for Tom Brady. I do think, like Ricky, that he hits that 3 mark, and I don't think it's going to be an easy win. I just, as good as the Carolina Panthers defense is, you're either starting Cam Newton or Sam Darnold, and I can't tell which one is better for Tampa Bay. And I meant what I said. Like, either or, it's an advantage Tampa Bay, because either quarterback is not going to offer much for the Panthers, and I think it's going to create opportunities for this Bucs defense, albeit, them being shorthanded as well. No Levante David, no Antoine Winfield Jr. I think this is a nice landing spot for the Bucs, who have come off a pretty tough stretch of games here the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they get a nice soft landing with the Panthers here. So give me the Bucs in this one on the road, kind of rebounding into a nice, pretty good offensive day.
You might not be able to play a hockey movie and play in the NHL unless it's a Disney movie. You might be able to start a quarterback for the Panthers the way Matt Rule likes to move quarterbacks around. So that is a possibility.
You don't know how bad my shoulder is. Trust me. I think I just dislocated it telling you how bad it is. So let me. There we go. Yep, back in place. Go ahead.
I think we talk about Tampa's getting shut out on Sunday. I think what also gets overlooked is they did hold a bad Saints offense to 3 field goals. So that kind of also doesn't get talked about, how good Tampa's defense is starting to round into shape. I think defense, even if the offense goes through some struggles, Tampa's defense dominates, and they win this game in an ugly medium score game, but like a 27-9 maybe kind of a ball game.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw PJ Walker in this game if he's active. I mean, the way the Panthers are going about quarterbacks. So this is definitely kind of one of those games. One team fighting for a Super Bowl at this point in the season. Another one fighting for a draft pick placement in the order. So don't really think this will be, like you said, Tampa Bay's prettiest game or best game. I do think there'll still be some learning curves offensively, but in the end, it's a Super Bowl caliber team. So I think they'll get the win on the road.
Next, we got the Houston Texans, Davis Mills, hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Houston's done some nice things, here and there throughout the course of the last month and a half or so. But even at home, I think the Chargers are going to be a little bit too much. The Chargers are obviously fighting for playoff positioning. They're looking at the team like the Colts, who continue to win games. I think, albeit, again, a slim chance the division is still kind of within grasp. Again, if Brandon Staley had not cost them games by dumb coaching decisions, maybe we're having a different conversation here. But yeah, I think the Chargers, not that they're more desperate, they're just they need this win obviously a lot more, and Houston might not be as motivated to further fall down the draft order. So give me the Chargers in this one.
I thought this game could be closer than what it was expected, because you look at the Chargers, the letdown from last week. No Austin Eckler today. No Mike Williams today. So Justin Herbert doesn't have as many weapons. The problem, though, is The Texans don't have Brandon Cooks. They have about 19, 20 people on the COVID list themselves. Davis Mills could keep it close for maybe a half, 3/4. He's actually played pretty well, as we've talked about before. The Chargers, I think, just have too much defensively. But I would not be surprised if Houston hung around because of the letdown factor. But the Chargers need the game, like Ian said. LA wins.
Yeah, I'm going to go Chargers as well. I think even with all that they're missing on the COVID list, the fact you still have Justin Herbert, I mean, that's probably going to make a difference just itself. I think this is one of those games where I think it's not necessarily going to be too surprising to see the Chargers defense actually get out of their funk a little bit, even with Joey Bosa out. So I do kind of anticipate a game with a lot of turnovers for the Chargers defense. So not just really worrying about Herbert's arm, but defense maybe improving today. So LA gets the win.
Next, we have Seattle hosting Chicago Bears. Both teams, again, this is probably the biggest dud of the week. The weekend. Even some of these earlier games that we talked about, the Jets and the Jaguars, I think have some awful football potential. This really just has. I mean, this is a Seattle team that I think has a lot of questions going into the offseason that really don't have any obvious answers. Same with Chicago. I mean, I think we all agree that Justin Fields is a pretty good future for them. But again, I don't think any one of us trusts what Chicago can do in terms of building a team or at least projecting talent based on, well, just their history. So certainly over the past decade or so. So I don't know. I mean, I guess Seattle wins at home. I mean, they have to play well at some point, right? Russell Wilson has to have a great game at some point, right? Right? Question mark? I don't know. So give me Seattle in this one.
Both these teams can help each other answer questions about what their organizations will look like next year. Nick Foles is a quarterback, I think, for the Bears today. So you get that at least. And if the Bears were going to play hard, Monday would have been the game, and they came out flat. They couldn't do anything offensively. So they've kind of checked out. Seattle, and watching a lot of Tuesday, largely it's Russell Wilson at fault. He's underthrowing DK Metcalf. They can't do anything. Metcalf's yelling at him. I think Wilson's, I don't know if he's checked out of Seattle, but a lot of the blame he's put on other people. He kind of needs to look in the mirror and realize he's not that great anymore and needs to change the way he plays. You're right, though, Ian. This is 16-13 written all over it, and I'm taking Seattle just because they're at home. But that's really it.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of reasons, but I do think the fact that Russell Wilson is starting for one of these teams, even as much as he has struggled lately, I think that's going to be just enough of a difference. And it's always kind of one of those weird trips to go up where it seems like Seattle's far away from everybody else up there in the Pacific Northwest. So Chicago, they've kind of checked out, and I think that going on that long trip's even going to worsen their chances today. So Seattle wins.
All right, next, Kansas City hosting the Pittsburgh, I almost said Penguins, but they are in fact the Steelers. They both, same color, same whatever. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes they look Steelers, look like the Penguins out there on ice on the football field sometimes. But it's not going to happen this weekend. That's right, folks. Maybe I'm a little crazy. Maybe I had a little bit too much eggnog. Actually, no, that's not true. I hate eggnog. It's gross. Anyone who drinks it should be put on an island by themselves, and that should be that. So I'm sorry if I offended anyone out there who loves eggnog. I don't know. I'm going to take Pittsburgh. Maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking here. Maybe it's a little bit of a projection here saying, oh, I want Kansas City to lose because it obviously creates opportunity for some other specific teams in the AFC. I do think that maybe Pittsburgh, again, maybe there's something to this last hurrah for Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe there's some games down the stretch here where they come out and say, you know what, maybe he's going to play above his means. And I think of all the games left on their schedule, to go into Kansas City to beat this team after the last time I believe they faced each other with Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes threw 6 touchdowns, something like that. So, I mean, there's some revenge factor there. So yeah, give me Pittsburgh in this one. And I have a feeling I might be the only one out of this panel to take them. So go on, Ricky. What do you think?
One of the things we know, the Chiefs can win games flashy, and they can also win games ugly. This is probably a game they have to win ugly. But the Steelers, you just can't trust them right now. And I can trust Roethlisberger, but I can't trust without their top tight end, who's been a machine over the last 2 weeks. And unless the Chiefs give them chances, I don't think they're going to be able to capitalize. Chris Jones, I think, wins the Chiefs this game. I think it's low scoring, but the fact that the Chiefs get 4 downs to do things instead of 3, I think just makes you think you can't hold them down that long when they get 4 downs to do everything. So give me Kansas City in a low scoring defensive style game.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with what a lot of Ian said. I think as far as Pittsburgh being able to kind of make this a close game, defensively, I think they're going to have chances to definitely get more pressure on Mahomes early. But in the end, I think the Chiefs can score more than Pittsburgh, even with guys out of the lineup. And I do think this is one of those games, like Ricky mentioned, Chris Jones, but I think it's one of those games where Melvin Ingram going up against the team he started the year with. That's going to be a lot of motivation for him to kind of prove to them that I think they were using him in the wrong role. And I guess just one other thing, I think talking about who's going to kind of step up maybe in the Chiefs passing game. Josh Gordon, this is kind of a game I'm watching to see how he does. He was getting to run a little bit more of a varied route tree the last time we saw him on the field. So a big body guy against this Pittsburgh team. That'll be fun to see how he'll do. But yeah, I am going to go Kansas City. Not necessarily pretty, but a tight win at home.
Hey, I hope I'm right. That's all I can say. I hope I'm right. Next, Las Vegas hosting Denver in another AFC West or another divisional matchup to close out our 4:00 games. Again, I'll take Las Vegas. They're at home. I think they're a better overall team. Although, again, we're talking about 2 middle of the pack teams going against each other. But yeah, give me the Raiders at home. I don't got much more to add to that.
Yeah, I think this game was a pick 'em most of the week. And when it comes to that, okay, who do you like? Do you like Drew Lock or do you like Derek Carr? You got to go Derek Carr. The Raiders just seem to find a way to win. And you look at Denver, they can run the ball, but look at their 2 pass catchers last week against the Bengals, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, combined for 2 catches for 12 yards or 3 catches for 12 yards on about 12, 13 targets. They need a quarterback to get some receivers involved in the future. So just the fact that Carr has receivers that aren't running backs he can get the ball to, I'll take Vegas at home to sweep Denver.
Yeah, this is kind of a game where I'm actually throwing a lot of logic out the window as much as I usually would take Derek Carr over Drew Lock. I just think the sum of the parts for Denver is a little bit more suitable than Vegas right now, and I think the running game and defense really is kind of playing at a level that's kind of should be getting more credence than it is, but because Denver is where they are, obviously, that's kind of what it is. But I do think this is a game where defensively it's going to kind of be won by the Broncos secondary. So kind of a weird one today. I'm going to go Broncos.
All right. Last but not least, actually, it is kind of the NFC least if you want to talk about it. I mean, it's generally a division that is up and down. Black is white, night is day, and so on and so forth. And this one, though, I think Dallas pretty much, I think they take care of business at home. I know Washington, they're a team that really disappointed early on because I think their defense was greatly underperformed. I think they've kind of found a bit of a groove there. The consistency on offense hasn't been there. Consistency just game to game overall hasn't been there for Washington. And I think Dallas, just like many teams in NFC, is very flawed. But I do think that they wrap this one up tonight at home. So give me the Cowboys.
Taylor Heineke's back, but I don't think by the middle of the first quarter, he's not going to want to be back after what Dallas did to him a couple weeks ago, what they'll probably do to him tonight defensively. I think Dallas wins, but I'm more interested in how does Mike McCarthy try to screw this up because he tends to do a good job at it. And can this offense actually find some rhythm going to the playoffs? Because right now, Dak's done okay, but they're going to need to be more than okay to beat Green Bay, to beat Tampa, to beat the Rams. Right now, they're still not there offensively. So I'm more interested in the offense and the outcome because I think Dallas is going to be good. But if they can't figure it out tonight offensively, honestly, I'm not sure when they're going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, Dak I thought was kind of in the MVP race early in the season, and then these last few weeks, I just don't know if he can win a playoff game right now. But like you said, I just think this Washington team, too much variance for me right now to really put a lot of trust in them. And the way Dallas defense is kind of able to get takeaways and points off of that quickly, I think that's going to play into tonight's game again. So I got Dallas at home.
All right. There's 2 weeks left, 3 weeks left, including this weekend. I'm just gonna ask you guys, who is? I don't need a reason why. I just need a name. That's all I need.
We need a name.
Who is your MVP right now? Ricky, go.
Close, but Rodgers.
Braden?
Brady for me.
That's why I like you, Braden. That's why I like you. And that's why I paid you to say that. Checks in the mail. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Merry Christmas for those who celebrate. Happy holidays, and I wish you all a happy New Year. We will be back next Sunday, January the 1st, 2022. Have a great day.